It's time for the showstopper, a beautiful blueberry lattice top pie. The technique is in the weaving of that top crust. When you're making a fruit pie with a particularly delicate or juicy fruit, like blueberries, raspberries, cherries, or blackberries, you need to pre-cook the filling so as not to have a soggy fruit pie. So what I have here are 4 cups of fresh blueberries. It's essential when you're making a blueberry pie that you use fresh blueberries. Frozen blueberries have tougher skins and they'll just never cook out right. So to my fresh blueberries, I'll add a cup of sugar and I'll turn on the heat just to a gentle simmer. Something I like to add to my cooked blueberry filling is a grated apple. The pectin within the apple helps to set the filling. It doesn't take long to cook, about 10 minutes before this comes up to a full simmer and all the sugar has dissolved. To add a little extra flavor, just a bit of lemon zest. You could interchangeably use lime zest and lime juice. You just need about a tablespoon. And lastly, just a little bit of cinnamon, about a 1/4 teaspoon. The blueberries are already starting to cook down. It only takes about 10 minutes for the sugar to fully dissolve and the blueberries to soften. So of course, you can't pour this into a pie shell. It would just run everywhere. So you use cornstarch to thicken it. You can't add the powder right to the hot liquid. You have to create what's called a slurry. That's the combination of cornstarch and water. I use 2½ tablespoons of cornstarch and just add a touch of cool water. At first it's cloudy, keep stirring it, and it'll thicken up. As soon as the first few bubbles break the surface, you can take it off the heat. And I'll pour it into a bowl to cool. You don't want to pour a hot fruit filling into a pie shell or it'll just melt the pie shell. So you have to cool down the filling completely to room temperature. And I have a filling that's cooled completely to room temperature, so we're ready to make our lattice top pie. So you can see as the filling cools, how much it thickens up. To get ahead of things, I've already rolled out the bottom layer of my pie dough. I think out of all the berry pies, blueberry pie has to be my favorite. And I'll just set this aside because I need the space to make my lattice top. This one I want to shape into a square because I have to cut out those lattice strips. When rolling out your top crust for a lattice top, roll it a little thinner than the bottom crust because they are going to be woven on top of each other. So this is closer to 1/8 of an inch. To cut my lattice strips, I'm going to use a pastry cutter. This is a professional accordion pastry cutter. Of course, you can use a single pastry cutter and a ruler to get the straight lines. I'm going for a strip that's about 1/2 inch across. You want to make sure you have anywhere from 12 to 18 of the strips. And I do the weaving right on top of the pie. So I'll set 8 strips, just all going in one direction, about the same width as the strip itself. Every other strip you pull backwards, about halfway down the pie, and set it down on itself. Now you take a strip, place it on perpendicular, and fold those pieces right back over top. Now you take the alternating strips and pull those, stopping where you laid this one across. And then just keep repeating. You don't need a fancy fluted edge to distract you from the beautiful lattice top. So I press gently on the sides to fuse the lattice top to that bottom crust. I'm gonna lift the pie and take a paring knife, hold the pie up, and in a downward motion, trim off any excess. So a little bit of that egg wash, and I brush around the outside and then along each of the woven strips. The finishing touch, a little sprinkle of that coarse turbinado sugar onto a baking tray and into the hot oven, 400 degrees for that 10 minutes to get that bottom crust cooking. Then I'll turn down the oven to 375, and this pie takes another 40 minutes for it to brown evenly on top. A delicate fruit pie, like a blueberry pie, is best served cold. So I have one that's chilled for a few hours. It just makes it so refreshing when it's cold. I love how the lattice work, because it's woven this way, stays in place as it bakes. Look at how well that slices. You can tell it's a homemade filling, and of course, the homemade crust on top. This is really a fresh fruit pie to be proud of.